Part 3, a special report on the religious knowledge of the Cherokee Indians by J. Murray Rawson. Early Cherokee history. It is the belief of the Cherokee people that they came to the land of the New World from the direction of the East Ocean riding on a white cloud. Footnote 4. It was mentioned by the chief that perhaps the clouds are the white sails of the ships which brought them here. It was also mentioned that the word Cherokee was somehow associated with the Hebrew word for cloud or sail. Cherokee is not at all associated with any Hebraic word. However, the Aramaic language possesses the word sharak, which means east. Also, the word sharakia refers to the east wind. Al-Sharakia means the hot desert wind, but literally means the easterner. Information received from Dr. Shlomo Kari, professor of electrical engineering, University of New Mexico, and private linguist, native speaker of the Aramaic and Hebrew languages, by Paul Anishko. There seems to be in the legend the existence of some type of round instrument which directed the voyage. Although not totally clear, it seems that the instrument which directed the voyage was ball-shaped and contained another like it within itself. It contained a liquid, making the floating devices within to congregate at times to give direction to the eyes of the beholder. Footnote 5. This description of the so-called Liahona is the first rendition I have come across outside of the Pueblo Indian legends. The Pueblo Indians of the New Mexico relate a story of a man who is in search of his other brothers, who originated from the same land he did, and came to this land after the great destruction. However, he is led to his brothers by the means of an owl, which pointed in the direction of whither he should go. The story says that he was able to communicate with the owl in all circumstances and receive both direction and instruction from the instrument, so that he was able to locate his brothers safely in the new land of promise. Note given by Paul and Cisco. Like the Iroquois, the Cherokee believe that the ancient people landed in what is the Yucatan Peninsula Mayan Indian area. Now keep in mind from the forward that J. Murray Rawson never actually heard the Cherokee say the Yucatan Peninsula, but always said the land south. Think of that in a, with your Joseph Smith cap on, and what things Prophet Joseph Smith said, and that maybe that land south was actually somewhere near Florida. From there, they migrated northward, then again into a southerly direction. So if you're thinking with the Joseph Smith cap, what could that mean of, migrating northward, who they would meet, and then back southward. This is the route followed after they left the southlands of the Yucatan. The migration northward took the Cherokee, actually the people, because they believe they were one people at that time, and they had not yet divided into groups, into the area of what is now New York, near the place of waters called Lake Erie. As they arrived in this area, which is now northern New York, they found a light-skinned people who already possessed the land. The Cherokee people befriended these light skins and dwelt among them. These light skins were a mighty and a great people. The Cherokee believe that they were the true forefathers of all the Indians, who had come from the east across the waters riding in white clouds. Peace and harmony existed among the people throughout the land, so that everyone lived well. In time, dissensions occurred among the people, and inevitably the two peoples began to despise each other. All the ceremonies were disrupted, and their beliefs questioned. some believing in one thing and others believing in another. The confusion became so intense that all the good feelings and peace and harmony which existed could not be found among the two peoples. In due time, the two groups knocked heads, to quote the Iroquois. After the battle, it was found that the Iroquois nation, the Cherokee sprang from this group, was defeated and placed under subservient conditions. Their women were raped and placed under slavery, supervision by the bark eaters, as the light skins were called. They also performed sacrilegious services and sacrifices, cutting out the hearts of the people. The Iroquois nation suffered greatly at the hands of the bark eaters, and prayed unendingly for deliverance for the space of many, many years. The Cherokees and the Ark of the Covenant. A brief comment on the subject of the Ark of the Covenant. Perhaps there will be those who will quickly ridicule or make light of the possibility that the Ark of the Covenant is in possession of the Cherokee, as described in the information given. It is understandable that anyone might think this is a hoax. However, studies of the Ark of the Covenant show that it disappeared after the destruction of the temple. When the temple was rebuilt, the Ark of the Covenant was not present, so that it could not have been destroyed in the second destruction, because it was not there to destroy. However, the assumption is that it might have been kept in hiding, and some believe it is hidden under the dome of the rock. But when the Ark of the Covenant was taken from the Israelites, everyone who took possession of it wanted to get rid of it, because of the many plagues and disasters which came to those who possessed it. Why then would anyone want to take the Ark of the Covenant from Israel after having experienced such great difficulties with it? It is concluded that it must have been taken to a safe place and kept there by the remaining Jews in Jerusalem, since the 10 tribes had already vanished prior to the second destruction of Jerusalem. It is also known that the captives of Israel did not carry the Ark of the Covenant with them at the time they were led away. The Book of Mormon tells that the people of the Mulekites left Jerusalem at its destruction. They were direct descendants of the Jews, Mulek being the son of King Zedekiah. The possibility exists that there were some of the Mulekites who were charged with the care and keeping of the Ark of the Covenant and brought it with them as they sailed from the east. Thus, the possibility also exists that the Cherokee Ark of the Covenant may very well be the real one. Certainly, no one has heard of it after its disappearance from the temple, and it was not to be found at the destruction of the temple, where it had been kept for safekeeping. Perhaps no one found it, though many tried to, because it had been brought to the America and cared for by the descendants of the Jews who had been charged with its care and keeping. Now, one other thing that comes to mind. If the crystals are written in a form of Egyptian characters, this would seem to coincide remarkably with the time of the making of the Ark of the Covenant. The children of Israel had just left Egypt, where they had resided for about a half a millennium. The Cherokee chief and medicine man, not being versed in the non-Cherokee doctrines and histories of the Israelites, certainly has provided some details of information unequaled any place else by Paul Inciso. The Ark of the Covenant dates back to times of antiquity. Cherokee legend clearly describes its accompanying the ancient Cherokee as they came across the Atlantic Ocean. Therefore, the Ark of the Covenant came from the east, originating from the same place as the Cherokee, they having received it from Yahweh, therefore alluding to its sacredness. The approximate measurements of the Ark of the Covenant are described to be about 3.5 feet by 2.5 feet, standing about 1 foot high, looking somewhat like a cedar chest. Atop its four corners are found four winged pigeons or personages. The wood is very smooth, and everything about it seems to be exceptionally well preserved, even in perfect condition. There are four staves with what appears to be brass handles on each of these. These staves are located on the outside of the ark, going through goldish brass colored type rings. On the exterior of the ark, one notices the decor of gold and silver, with 12 stones fastened thereto, arranged in a circle. In the center of this circle of stones sit a red stone, the holy stone, and two other stones beside it, one to its left and the other to its right side. These stones basically represent the 12 laws of the Cherokee Nation and remind those who see them of the sacred covenants they have made and been entrusted with. One of the two stones besides the holy stone is interpreted to mean that one should not believe in any other god, but only in the beliefs and traditions of the old way, which is Amiawa, and the other is interpreted to mean that one must believe in Itza, being interpreted Jesus Christ, with all of one's heart and soul, that he did visit the Cherokee people and walked, talked, and taught them his teachings. Inside the chambers of the ark are 12 crystals containing the 12 laws of the Cherokee Nation. These crystals are of a lightish brown, amber, and white hue. They are long, flat-like glass slabs that look somewhat like diamond. Their approximate measurements are about 18 inches by 24 inches each. They are not metal, but a transparent crystalline type stone. These crystals do not appear to be of American Indian style, but seem to resemble a form of Egyptian character writing. Some crystals have long characters on them, while others are inscribed with smaller ones. The characters on each stone reveal stories pertaining to the first law, second law, etc., to the 12 law of the Cherokee Nation. The first law speaks about the creation of a man and the tree of life. The creation of man and the tree of life. These crystals and the Ark of the Covenant play a very important part in the true religious ceremonies of the Cherokee. The Ark of the Covenant is protected in a cave and is guarded, protected, and cared for by specially selected men. If the Ark is to be moved, prayer and fasting are required before, during, and after the move, as well as right before the Ark is reestablished. Performing a special ceremony for purifying everything associated with the Ark is essential. The Cherokee do so in order to keep the spirit of Yahweh in the Ark, as well as to keep Yahweh with the people. It is said that to see the Ark is to see a part of the living and loving God. There is a cloud of mist that surrounds the Ark. Only 3 medicine men can touch the Ark. The only 3 are allowed to remove the sacred crystals from its chambers. Only 7 of the lower medicine men are allowed to lift the Ark to move it. If anyone else touches it without being specifically called to that duty, he shall die. This was the instruction and law given by Yahweh. To speak of the Ark is forbidden. If any of the medicine men speak of it, they risk losing all their sacred powers and perhaps even their lives. An oath of death helps keep the secret reverence of the Ark. Also, according to the Iroquois, the Ark of the Covenant is surrounded by a barrier. No one is allowed to touch the Ark under penalty of death, except for the chief Grand Council medicine men. Belonging to the company of the Ark of the Covenant is found an article called the foot wash. It measures approximately 4 feet in length so that a person can stand inside of it. It has a small handle on it. However, it has a stand as an accompanying instrument for the purpose of burning incense. This stand has an approximate height of 4 to 5 feet, more probably 5 feet. 7 types of woods are used for the incense burning, which acts as charcoal for the igniting of the raw green tobacco that is placed over it. Among the articles belonging to the company of the Ark of the Covenant is also found an altar with 4 protrusions, which are fashioned after the manner of ram's horns and made from a gold-like substance. There is a dark copper-like slab with a wall built around it. On top of this wall was placed another slab, so that a 4-cornered altar was constructed. The altar is taken apart every year, so it must be rebuilt every year for the religious rites to be performed on it. Because no one is allowed to go near enough to the ark to touch it, a guard stands at each of the 4 corners. At the side of the altar, a high priest stands behind the altar, and 2 lower priests or medicine men stand on each side of the altar. The Ark of the Covenant is totally encompassed by a white veil, made from a type of cloth that is unique in appearance. No one knows where this cloth came from or who made it. The 4th veil, which encompasses the ark, has a bit of gold on it and comes to a point over the ark, somewhat like a square tent with the roof coming to a point. There are then 4 veiled walls surrounding the ark, with each side having 7 types of circular holes. Colors are also used. Each color represents the 4 types of people found in the world: red, black, white, and yellow. Also red, green, brown, blue, and light dark purple. The red is for fire, green is for Mother Earth, white is for the Spirit, and dark light purple is the representative of the Lord, royalty. The other colors represent life, fertility, the earth, etc. The red circle is always in the middle, while the others form a circle around it. They also surround the square where the ark is located. On the rooftop of the tent are red painted slots or holes. When the ark sits in the temple, there is a hole immediately over the ark in the rooftop to allow light to shine into the room where the ark is located. The light, however, is not allowed to shine directly on the Ark of the Covenant. As part of the religious rite that is performed, and when such a religious rite continues through the evening hours, particular lamps are displayed that belong to the company of the articles belonging to the Ark of the Covenant. These lamps are filled each with one of 4 kinds of animal oil, whale, bear, etc. The lamps are not touched. However, a type of goldish-brown light is emitted from them during the night hours of the ceremony. The Cherokee believe that Yahweh is in the ark, so that spiritually they feel his power allows the lamps to emit light to them for the religious rites being performed. As mentioned before, no one is allowed to touch the Ark of the Covenant. If anyone should, the guards are instructed to take that person's life. Cherokee Temple Ordinances of the Council House. The Cherokee Council House, which serves as a temple edifice as well, has 7 walls, built in the fashion of a septagon. Each side is representative of the 7 Cherokee clans or family groups. Each side also has an entrance and a specific place for the chief to sit. The high chief with his 2 counselors, sit in the middle of the council house or temple. This high chief is also known as the Grand Council Head Chief. There is also a sub-Grand Council Head Chief and a medicine man who is referred to as the right-hand man. Next in order sit the clan chiefs, the sub-clan chiefs, and then all the other members of the offices of each clan or family unit, who sit behind one another in rank. Each one has a delegated seat in the council house. Lastly, the members of each family group can also sit in council and listen to the words that are spoken. Meantime, while the elect officials speak, no one else will irreverence the occasion of their speech. About 100 yards away from the 7-sided council house or temple, the actual temple sits atop a mound. Because today there exists no village, as existed anciently, the ark is brought and set upon what would be a holy house made with 4 sides. The ark is set there with all of the necessary articles for a religious ceremony. It must be remembered that during the ceremonial use of the Ark of the Covenant, it had to be situated near a place where water existed, so the ordinances of baptism for the living and proxy baptisms for the dead could be performed. In attending this ceremony, which was usually held for up to 4 days, depending upon the size of the people gathered for the ordinances to be performed, everyone was expected to walk or go by horseback into the furthest remote areas wherever the ark was taken and placed. The walls of the holy house built to perform the ordinances associated with the Ark of the Covenant had to be white. The entrance had to face east and the exit west. The prerequisite for anyone going through the veils of the temple was marriage. One was also required to go through the ordinances of the temple with one's mate. Those entering the temple must wear light-colored clothing, although not necessarily white. In entering the holy house, temple, one must pass through 4 veils in order to obtain a view of the Ark of the Covenant. There are altars between each veil passageway where incense is burned. In order to pass from one veil to another, certain passwords and hand grips must be given. These hand grips were shown to J. Murray Rawson. The passwords were said to be the names of the old tribal leaders and of Yahweh. Regarding the marriage ceremony, Indians, Cherokee, must be married before the tribal council. This marriage is for this life only. If Indians are worthy, after the first ceremony, they can then go to the holy house and be married for eternity by the medicine man and witnessed by all the council chiefs. This marriage cannot be broken or changed. There is no divorce. However, transgression of the eternal marriage covenant will revoke it. When a spouse and his mate enter the temple house, they first enter through the east and go through the white veil, which is called the first veil. Upon entering, the woman washes the man's feet and then his hands. In return, the man washes the woman's feet and then her hands. By knowing what ordinance the two are there to perform, the woman will then proceed to go with her husband through the various steps or rooms. There are 4 steps that must be performed prior to arriving to the Ark of the Covenant, assuming, hypothetically, they both are there to receive the ordinance of marriage sealing for eternity. The second room is the incense room. In this room, one can pray and burn incense. It is not unusual for one's prayers to be answered there. If the medicine man finds one worthy in this second room, he, or the high priest officiating, will give his decision and recommendation for that person to continue to the third room, where the altar is located. In this third room, the altar room, one is allowed to bring his sacrifice and their sacrifice a bird or some other type of small animal. Because only a certain number of people are allowed to enter this altar room, certain restrictions are applied. Therefore, after all the sacrifices are received of the high priest there, each person in the room is allotted a specified amount of time to ask questions, to receive guidance and revelation. The offerings are then burnt at that point while special prayers are recited. Simultaneously, the person going through the ordinance fervently prays, hoping his prayer to be answered, and that he may receive a blessing of the Lord. As one is found worthy, the medicine man will send him on to the fourth room, wherein he must pass through the fourth veil. In this fourth room, the Ark of the Covenant is located. The passageway into the fourth room, through the fourth veil, is also called the gateway. Passage is gained only through the use of certain passwords. The officiator returns the same words as they have been given to him by the person going through the temple. The passwords basically are the answers to these questions. Who are you? And what do you believe in? The person then gives the officiator a name for the first password and tells him that he believes in Amiawa, meaning the laws of the longhouse. Those laws are very similar to the 10 Commandments and very specific. Therefore, these laws teach one to be clean, pure, and chaste morally, so that one's body is pure to progress spiritually, and also pure to progress symbolically, physically, into the fourth room. Continuing, the medicine man will ask the person seeking passage through the gateway if he has kept the laws of his conviction, Amiawa, and the person will answer him. Again, he will ask the person another question, who is your master? The person will then respond that his master is Ananyo-o, which means God. The person is then permitted to pass onward to another high priest or brother who asks him another question. The person will then respond according to the questions asked, which questions are determined by the purpose for which the person is going through the holy house. The person should be totally worthy to participate in the sacred rite. Because there is no baptismal place inside the room where the ark is located, a person understands that proxies to be performed for the departed, baptisms for the dead, must be done outside of the holy house. Nonetheless, while in this room, the participant will go before the ark to pray, asking for certain blessings to be imparted to the deceased. Another type of ordinance that could take place at this time, aside from proxy baptisms, would be sealings. One type of sealing that could be asked to be performed in front of the ark would be a marriage sealing. One would do this by kneeling in front of the ark, being careful not to touch it. Therefore, according to the prayers being offered, the medicine man will recognize the purpose of the participants. He will then ask questions pertaining to the same. In the marriage ceremony, after the proper questions have been asked, the couple wishing to be married, sealed for eternity, will then go before the 7 clan chiefs to ask their permission to be married. If one of the clan chiefs refuses permission, then the participants would again need to start from the beginning, asking the permission of all the clan chiefs until they are united in favor of granting permission. The man then will proceed to the high priest, who will ask why he has brought the woman to be sealed to him. He will also be asked why he loves her, why he wants to be married to her, and why he wants to be sealed to her. Of course, the significance of sealing a man and a woman together is to bind them for eternity after death, and not just for this life. After the marriage prayers are said, the couple is counseled and reminded of their faithfulness, trust, and loyalty to one another. This then becomes the contract between the two, wherein each person describes his contract to the other person, detailing that each would expect in that marriage. This marriage contract can be revoked only upon transgression of the marriage covenant, the oath. However, a divorce cannot end this marriage contract if the couple should decide they want to annul the end and end the marriage. The marriage is binding for all eternity. After each participant has spoken his and her wishes of the marriage contract, then their wrists are cut and their blood exchanged. This was the custom in the old days. However, nowadays, the fingers are pricked with a needle. Then they are joined together so that the blood exchange takes place in like manner. These words are then spoken between the couple. Your blood is now my blood, and my blood is your blood, and now we are one, and no one will be able to break this marriage. The high priest and the other councilmen present will then approach the couple and will place their hands upon the heads of the married couple and will pray over them, asking for certain blessings upon the man. In the traditional way, the old days, these prayers used to be done by raising of both hands high into the air as certain blessings would be pronounced. Today, the practice is done away. Rather, the placing of one's hands upon the heads, shoulders, or some other part of the body is sufficient. Entering into and going through the sacred ordinances of the temple ceremony has deep meaning to the Cherokee. Every person who will enter the temple to go through the 4 steps, passing each veil from the first through the 4th, must know the exact passwords and responses to the questions that will be asked. Each must repeat the same words and substance. Each must be acquainted with the purpose of his or her going through the ceremony. If one is going for the purpose of being baptized for the dead, then one will also need to go to a river nearby, for which purpose its waters have been blessed. The person will be immersed into the river waters. This type of baptism is similar to the baptism for oneself. Prior to being baptized for the dead, the proxy must be worthy. The proxy must have fasted for 4 days and 4 nights, going completely without drink or nourishment for that period of time, in order to purify the body before performing the proxy baptism. This purification process also requires that the proxy go into a sweat house or sweat lodge and take a sweat bath. This allows one to sweat out the bad or evil spirits that may reside inside one's body. The proxy is required to attend to a sweat bath at least twice a day during the 4-day ordeal. The person entering the sweat house will wear light-colored clothing, although it needs not necessarily be white. This light-colored clothing is necessary because the person will be entering into the temple. During baptism, the proxy baptism, or baptism for oneself, one wears hardly anything. The reason for this is that anciently, when buckskin was worn, it became wet and heavy and uncomfortable to wear. It is the ancient belief and rite that if 2 people who were married but not sealed according to the sealing ceremony, and one of the 2 had passed on in death, the survivor, being worthy to enter the temple, could invite a worthy brother or sister, as the case may be, or a blood relative, to stand in as proxy for the deceased companion. However, if no blood relative could be found, then the survivor, wishing the ordinance of marriage sealing would have to fast and pray until someone was found worthy enough to stand in as the proxy. The religious rite would then take place, so that the sealing ceremony in the marriage covenant would take its binding power upon the living and the dead. This could happen even when they were unable to enter into the temple, because one or both were unworthy when they were both alive. Both of the participants, the surviving spouse and the proxy standing in, would need to go through the ceremonial ordeal described earlier. The contract would be read by both people, the pricking of the finger and exchanging of blood, with the word exchange as well as the final blessing being pronounced upon the two, all being done in the name of the Father and the Son God and the Spirit God. As this was done, one of the 4 holy pipes would be presented to the Lord in the fashion of the 4 cardinal points. The pipe would then be taken to the woman and be placed on her forehead. And that was done in the name of the Father God. Then the pipe would be placed on her left shoulder, which was done in the name of the Son God. And lastly, the pipe would be placed upon her right shoulder, which was done in the name of the Spirit God. The same rite would be performed upon the man, bringing the pipe to touch his forehead, his left shoulder, then the right shoulder, in the same order and fashion as had been administered to the woman. This wedding was then celebrated with a feast. It should be noted that Cherokee Indians also have 2 special hand grips that are both sacred and secret. These hand grips were mentioned earlier. One is called the Brotherhood grip, and the other is called the Death Covenant grip, which only certain people in the tribe receive. J. Murray Rawson was asked if he wore a shield with special marks on it. The response that was given pertaining to the Cherokee people was, "We wear a shield with marks on it." There also exists a secret assassination group in the Cherokee Nation who will kill anyone who breaks the laws of the Holy Covenant, which are the ways of the old way. An honor to die. The Cherokee people have always believed in a life after death. They have never cremated their dead. Instead, their ritual has been to clothe the dead body with purity symbolism, then bury it beneath the ground. The Cherokee have a great belief in spirits, and that the person's spirit was thought to retrace his place of abode after having passed from this life onto the next. In the ancient lifestyle, the Cherokee people felt it an honor to die because they felt that the deceased had earned their reward. Everyone took it upon himself to live a righteous life, perfecting it at every turn, so that when the manner of time for one's life had been completed, it was also time to leave and travel into the next life. Then the privilege of dying was a happy occasion, one that was looked forward to, one that had earned the honor. Of course, there was some sadness at the loss of a loved one, but it was understood that death was but a passing from this life to the next. It was the order of things which a person had to accomplish from the step in this life in order to achieve and receive into the step of the next life. There are 7 steps to heaven. The admission to the highest heaven was the one a person wanted to eventually achieve. The ancient custom had the ordeal of placing the body in state for a period of 7 days in a place where it wouldn't be touched by anyone. At the end of the 7th day, there was a large festivity honoring the deceased, as though the deceased were present. The body was placed in a circle where the people paid tribute to the deceased by dancing all around it, while the customary festivities of the time took place. Now, the custom of the festivities sanctions respect and tribute to the deceased. Therefore, the people there took the time to remember the departed, and all communication was done in honor of the deceased. This continued until everyone had had the opportunity of participating. After the festive period had ended, the body was prepared by placing a white buckskin or a white piece of cloth over the body. After the proper rites had been administered to the body, it was then laid in a sepulchre and buried beneath the ground. The grave was covered with stones. The one exception to this mode of burial was for infant children. When the infant or small child of the family had passed away, the body of the child was placed inside a crock or clay container large enough to accommodate it. The lid was placed on the vessel, and it was buried. The bottom of the container was broken in a manner as to leave a hole in the bottom. It was believed that the child could then get out of this vessel through this hole as he continued his journey in life. On top of the grave was placed the Cherokee cross. This cross was a perpendicular stick that was raised with 3 horizontal bars at the top end. The top part of the cross then made the symbol of a T. The second bar was placed exactly below the first top bar, and the third bar was placed exactly below the second bar, each spaced a little from the other, the 2 bottom bars being parallel to the top bar as they decreased in their lengths. This was the true cross symbol of the Cherokee that was placed at all the burial sites representing the Godhead. Footnote 6. Perhaps every Indian tribe respects the cross symbol they received as a token from the Creator. Some are plus cross symbols, while others are single T figures, or T figures with 3 bars, as described here. These symbols represent the Godhead, life, special sacred markings, and they were also marks found on the hands and feet of the Creator when he visited the people. Note of explanation by the interviewer. The medicine men and medicine women taught and explained that after death, the good and the wicked would be separated. The good benefactors would be taken to a path that would lead them to happiness, where there would always be light, but the wicked and disobedient would be urged on a path which would lead them to a deep chasm, where light would be absent. The very wicked would go directly to a lake of fire. The War of the Bark Eaters and Where the Blood Ran Red All Day, Hill Cumorah Battle. In those days, after the Cherokee people had gone northward into the northern end of what is called New York, befriending a light-skinned race of people and living among them for a period of time in peace and harmony, there came a decree of war among the groups, so that all peaceful conditions had come to a halt. After the Bark Eaters, light-skinned race, had defeated the Iroquois nation, from which the Cherokee come, life became unbearable for the prisoners. In those days, when the Cherokee were a God-loving people, living in peace among themselves, they lived as one people dwelling in half-moon-shaped council houses. They had gone from living in caves to living in log cabins. They still kept the sacred records of metal, some of which had come across the ocean waters with them, and others which they had continued keeping and making, inscribing upon them as the leaders of the people had done before. They had possession of the Ark of the Covenant, which they also had brought with them from their place of origin across the eastern waters. After many, many years of praying for deliverance from their enemies, the Iroquois were delivered by Anayo, God. They escaped one night by getting into canoes and heading into what is now known as the Oswego River, which empties into Lake Ontario. As they were making their escape, some were seen by the bark eaters, so that they were pursued and overrun at the river. A battle followed, wherein the Iroquois were the victors. They thanked Ananyo for their deliverance, and they became a righteous and strong people once again. Once again, they were a blessed people because of their strong belief in Anayo. Because the bark eaters had become such a great threat to them, the Iroquois decided that they should battle the bark eaters while their strength was great. Therefore, they knocked heads once again with the bark eaters, beating them drastically, so that the bark eaters were reduced to a small number. Although the art of creating metal weapons has later been forgotten and lost, it is remembered that victory of this great battle was due much in part to their use of metal weapons against the bark eaters. Once again, peace dominated in the land for many, many years. These were years of much progress among all the people. The bark eaters became strong in number, again becoming a threat to the Iroquois nation. The two congregated again for another battle. There was division among the people as well as dissension. In this battle, the bark eaters were victorious and quickly put the Iroquois into bondage. They had almost been annihilated, their numbers and strength so diminished. As a result, many of the captives migrated southward. From this point spring forth the Cherokee. The Cherokee say that the reason the bark eaters became so victorious over the Iroquois was corrupt declination of the Iroquois people. They had actually become worse than the bark eaters. The Iroquois began not only to kill and sacrifice the bark eaters, but also to eat them. They had become a sacrilegious people, full of all manner of wickedness. They also began fighting amongst themselves. This continued so that there was no peace in the land, and the bark eaters began reviling against their captors and were victorious over them in battle. Therefore, the Cherokee continued moving southward from the northern area of what is now New York, and went still further south after the terrible battle that took place between themselves and the light-skinned race in the area that is now North Carolina. The Cherokee Nation had access to and dwelt upon the lands known today as Virginia, West Virginia, Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. After these great battles, it was heard that a holy man walked among them. This holy man was known as Itowa, who had come to give the people the great law. He taught peace. This was the essence of the religion. It is at this time that one finds that the Cherokee acquire the same laws of the Iroquois, for thus had Etowa given the great law, that all might benefit from obliging it. Etowa was a holy man, always dressed in white. He remained with the people long enough to teach them his ways, so that they could be instructed sufficiently in the law of love and peace. Etowa was responsible for the great peace that existed in the land once again among all peoples. Because of the peace that existed in the land, he told the people that he would soon be leaving, inasmuch as there were no more wars being fought. he promised that he would return to them and that he would send teachers among the people to remind them of him and his law. He bade farewell to a peaceful people. Then the following happened prior to Etowah's disappearance. Etowah got into a canoe that was without any oars or instruments of any kind to row. The canoe went outward into the water. Clouds developed overhead and stood exactly over Etowah. Then these clouds descended toward Etowah until they had totally covered him and the canoe. He was then taken up by these clouds. This event was witnessed by those who were there. It happened near a place called the Mountain of Muskoro, near Lake Erie. This place is located near a town called Via Roosevelt Town in New York. It was very difficult to understand the recorded word preceding Roosevelt. It could have been two other words as well, val, vale, or va. Many years appear to pass at this point before other prophets appear. However, after Etowah leaves, other prophets come down from the clouds. Among them is one called Dijawanti, who is a leader of the three chiefs. They separate and go throughout all the land, spreading peace and harmony. They prophesy, preach, and teach. It is said that after the great battles had been fought in years previous to the preaching of these three chief prophets, some of the descendants of the light-skinned people who escaped and went southward returned with a great number of their own people to fight the Battle of the Skull. This is the War of the Bark Eaters, or the battle where the blood ran red all day. Many great injustices were performed in the place of Death Mountain, as the Iroquois call it. It was after this great and terrible battle that the people separated and became tribes. Within the walls of the Iroquois Long House in New York is told this story. Originally, all members of the Iroquois nation lived in the area now known as New York. The Cherokee were forced south into North Carolina, where they changed their name. Later, some of them were forced further south into Florida, where they became known as Seminoles or Miccosukee. Note, the original chief, Osceola, was married to a Negro woman who was taken from him by federal soldiers. In retaliation, he murdered General Parker. This action forced the Seminoles to flee into the Everglades in 1857. In the days when all the people lived in peace, and throughout many years after Etowah had visited the people, when all the people lived in log cabins in half-moon-shaped houses, there existed three kinds of Indians. There was the black tribe, the white tribe, and the red tribe. This all came about after the times of great peace in the land, many, many years ago, when all the tribes were one people. The people were very godly then, until a day came when a red brother saw a black brother kill a white brother. This deed was done for money. After seeing this crime committed, the red brother went to the court of the land, but because no one was able to believe this, it went untreated. Throughout the land, more and more occurrences of devious and wicked deeds were heard. The black tribe left the red and white tribes. They felt that this would put a stop to their hurting anyone further. Over the years, as the people became numerous and power structured, actually jealousy played an important part. The blacks began to make war on the white and red tribes, so that the day came when the white and red tribes gathered together to make an all-out war upon the black tribe. Surely, now this would really stop the black tribe from doing further harm to the white and red tribes. After the battle was fought, the white tribe remembered to thank the Creator. However, the red tribe did not. The red tribe continued with their massacres, cutting and chopping the black tribes into pieces. The red tribe would tear out the hearts of the black tribe and cook and eat them after. It seemed useless for the white tribe to try to have the red tribe stop this barbaric treatment. The white tribe eventually decided to remove themselves deep into the woods and hills, where they would later build cities and temples of stone to protect themselves. For many years, the white and red tribes lived peacefully in many ways. However, because the red tribe wished for more lands and women, they began to fight against the white tribe, perhaps because their possessions seemed to be more lucrative. This was many years before the last war would be fought. One day, the red and white chiefs got together and decided, let's stop this tittle-tattle warfare and fight one big war to see who will be the big chief of all the other people's ways. It is said that the tribes of the white nation came as far as North and South Carolina to fight. It is believed that there are still places to be found in North and South Carolina indicating forts and home sites of the white tribes. Inevitably, the day came for the large battle to be fought. Because of their like for the white tribe, many members of the red tribe were found fighting amongst themselves. As the war continued, the chief of the white tribes was seriously wounded. It is said that this chief of the white tribe was the prophet who was sent to teach the people, and is believed to have then died with the people who were involved in the great war that was fought on that day. It is believed that this chief of the white tribe also had some records made of metal. Some metal plates records were buried on the east side of the base of the mount of the Battle of the Skull. Nonetheless, the red tribe was victorious in this last battle. They won the battle on top of the hill called the Place of the Hill where the blood ran red all day. As the war was nearing its end, those of the red tribe who were fighting alongside of the white tribe turned to fight against the white tribe in order to protect their image and loyalty to their red brothers. The red brothers who had fought on the side of the white tribe did everything possible to grant the surviving white tribe ample time to escape to the south. It is told that the old white chief who died was placed to rest near a lake with big trees. After this deed was done, the war was over. Near the place of Via Roosevelt Town, New York, if one goes up to the river, perhaps the Oswego River, for about 5 miles, where an island is located, there one will find a marker, a rock, which will give an impression of a skull figure, rock face of death. It is believed that the white chief prophet who came down from the sky is buried there after his death at the big battle. He had come down from the sky on clouds. This too is forbidden to be spoken of because of the death oath that was entered into. Oaths are very important to the Indian, and they must be lived up to. They cannot be taken lightly, but must be dealt with seriously and severely if necessary. And that is the end of a special report on the religious knowledge of the Cherokee Indians by J. Murray Rawson. I hope you found some awesome parallels and enjoyed this. Thanks a lot.